When President Muhammadu Buhari took over in 2015, the country was in heavy infrastructural deficit and needs a quick fix. Obviously, the country needs to borrow to fund many of its huge infrastructure, such as the massive rail project, road construction, power generation, and many other critical infrastructures. Records from the Debt Management Office reveal that Buhari-led administration incurred 7.6 trillion naira in domestic debt from June 2015 to December of 2020, while external debt stood at $21.27 billion. Within this period, domestic debt increased by 86.36%, while external debt moved up by 291.37%. These figures are becoming frightening to some Nigerians who feel the country may be indebted for a long time, but economists are sharply divided on this.
When the federal government says the borrowing is justified, we have to put it in context. Probably if you are referring to 2020, when the government had to borrow massively as a result of COVID-19, we could say it's relatively justified because most countries went into expansionary fiscal policy arrangements to cushion the impact of COVID-19 on their economy. But previously, prior to 2020, we've always had severe budget deficit to the extent that the figures being bandied around is about 10 trillion of ways and means funding of the federal government in the past 6 years. So that means the government has been borrowing not just from the debt market, but also from the central bank.
It's not unusual for the government to borrow from central bank. It's not unusual. And don't forget that there are tough times and the CBN has to do what it has to do to help support the economy and the government. So it may well be that we've exceeded this kind of limit because under the macroeconomic convergence criteria of ECOWAS, we're supposed to give no more than 10% of the revenue received the previous year by the government. But we all know that these are temporary situations, that the COVID is not going to be here forever.
The Nigerian Senate has consistently approved loan requests sent to it by the executive. The lawmakers recently approved 2 separate loans within 2 weeks. This economists say is becoming too much for a consuming nation like Nigeria.
What we have found out is that the FGN and the CBN have abused this window, both in terms of having converted what is intentioned to be a temporary facility into a hardcore way of financing the government. It has also consistently breached the limit requirement, which may even be interpreted as some sort of illegality.
The key questions are we borrowing for the right purpose? The answer is yes, because the focus is on infrastructure and within the law and human resource development. Do we actually need to borrow? The answer is yes, because we don't have enough to meet the needs, not least the COVID incidents.
A lot of borrowing is going into servicing government recurrent expenditure. If you take, for instance, last year, where total government revenue was just about 3.9 trillion naira, and total government debt service was about 3.26 trillion naira, which meant that the government spent about 83% of total revenue on debt service. That same year, the government spent more than 4 trillion naira on recurrent expenditure. Where did that come from? It came from borrowing.
Nigerians agree that huge funds are needed to build infrastructure and that the government also needs huge funds to stimulate economic activities in the country and create employment. But how to manage the country's borrowing remains a huge concern for most citizens.